Hello. Today is a long-awaited video which you guys have voted for, a prop animation tutorial including surface animation. Join my Discord server if you want further help or just want to vote for the next tutorial. But before we going to cover that in that video, I want to quickly point out our 5M shop, Dearest Mods, in case you want to check out our custom MLOs like Digital 10, in the city, lore friendly, or for now check out our coolest pet in the world. There will be weapons later on this on our shop, our store. For now we are into cyberpunk shit, so if you're like a server owner or just want to check out what we're doing at the moment, or if you're planning to open a server, make sure to check out our TabX. And yep, without further self-promotion, let's dive into the topic of this tutorial. To start with, we have to understand that there are three types of animations, prop animations in GTA. It's vertical rotation, horizontal rotation, and surface animation. I will cover all of them in this video. We're gonna start with horizontal rotation, which is I will do from scratch, something like that, you know, rotating light, rotating geometry and light source in one model. By the way, you can check out my 3 custom MLOs for prison for free on my GTA 5 mods, link in the description. So I'm gonna model it from scratch really quickly and simple, just to you guys to see that I'm not gonna be using any Rockstar assets or geometry, and we're gonna do everything from scratch with very few programs needed. So let's say this kind of light, rotating light, is something what I want. I'm gonna do something real quick. It's gonna be ugly probably, but it's alright for the purpose of this video. This will do. I just want to show you guys that it's not hard to do stuff yourself, not just take Rockstar geometry and do stuff. You can model anything you want. So I'm done with modeling. It's gonna be pretty ugly. Yes, I'm not the greatest modeler in the world, but whatever. So we have to have when modeling or choosing your model, you have to think about two stuff primarily. You have to have static geometry and geometry that's gonna be rotating, which is let's call it dynamic geometry. So I am pretty much done with my coolest model in the world. This is gonna be rotating, and this is what I consider static, this part. But we will divide it and work on it later on. Now let's, after you modeled it or made like found your model, right? Maybe you downloaded it from internet and it's completely fine. Next thing you do is you have to match the size, right? So let's center our pivot point, center our geometry, and match the size to GTA size. I imported vanilla GTA character. Let's disable our transparency. If you want to know how to work with pets, there's a pet scaling tutorial and an add-on pet tutorial. If you want to add like Power Ranger or like Marvel creature, Marvel superhero, or whatever, I have a tutorial on how you can do that as add-on pet. So now, as we know our size, let's just scale it down a lot. Now we're kind of good. Let's delete our size comparison thingy. Now the important thing is, after you scaled it down, with scaling tool you have to apply X4 modifier. It's crucial actually. Now you collapse it, and now we actually start to create our custom hierarchy and our rotation bones, our everything we need for it to rotate actually. So go to create object, models, bone, you create one bone, you create the second bone, so bone again, then you create a model, you create a light. It is optional, I just want to have a light on my custom light because I'm making a light, right? So I just want to show you how to embed a light source if you want to work with the light source. If you're creating something like a mill, you don't have to add light sources, but I will cover that as well, just for you guys to know. And you would also have to create collisions, composite collision here. So this is what we have in our scene at the moment. One geometry, light source, model, two bones that are the same for now, and composite collision. Now let's work with them and create a proper hierarchy and rename all this stuff. We start with renaming, so let's name our geometry, our mesh, prop anim tutorial. This is our mesh, like straight geometry, and this is our model, which is just a hierarchy, and that's it, just a layer if you want. Then we have our light source. You don't have to rename it really, it's whatever. Naming for light source is not important, GIMS will rename it automatically anyway. What is important is our bone naming and geometry naming and model naming and collision naming. So our first bone, let's name it the same, and root. So this is root bone. Root bone is basically a bone without a parent, just a highest hierarchy of the bones, if you wish. The second bone, we can also call it static bone, if for the purpose of this tutorial, to divide things more comprehendibly, if you wish. And the second bone will be dynamic bone. So we rename it to our prop anim tutorial bone. So that's like actual bone that does animation, unlike root bone. Our composite, for the purpose of this video, let's rename it the same but call at the end to keep it simpler in Scene Explorer and in hierarchies, so you guys understand what's going on. For the now we're done with renaming. Now for the rotation bone, so not the root bone, there are flags here, right? We don't care about the root bone, I mean in the sense that movement, rotation, it doesn't do things here, root bone. But for the rotation bone, which we named prop anim tutorial bone, we have to make it rotation XYZ and movement XYZ. XYZ. We also have to change ID and mirror ID for our rotation bone. Our root bone is the same. If we had like several bones that are not root bones, we would have it 1 and 2 and 3. So it's previous plus 1. If we had 2 rotation points, we would have it mirror ID2, ID2. So I think that's pretty understandable. Now let's create our hierarchy. So our highest hierarchy is our GIMS model. Into your GIMS model, you drag and drop your root bone, which is the second highest hierarchy. Like so. So GIMS model, root bone. Inside our root bone, we basically drop everything else for now. We drop our geometry, our dynamic bone, and our collision. Your light source, you're gonna drop in dynamic bone because it has to be rotating with the geometry. So if we had dropped it into root bone, it would be static light. Like, you know, geometry is rotating, but light source is not rotating. But we want the light source to rotate as well, so we drag and drop it into rotation bone. Got it? So it's pretty understandable now that we have to do the same with geometry, because as I said, some part of the geometry has to be static and some part of geometry has to be rotating. But we have one geometry for now, so what do we do with that? It's important to divide it properly. So we separate our, let's extend our viewport clipping so it's more comfortable for us to work with. We divide detach one thing from another. So this thing is going to be rotating, so I detach it, and we have this and this. Now as for the naming, we're gonna our non-rotating, our static geometry, and it's extremely crucial when we're making a custom model, add-on model. By the way, if you want tutorial on that, I can do that as well. Let me know, guys. We only have one geometry, but when we have a custom model that has animation in it, so prop animation, it has two geometries. So what do we do with that? How do we name that? We name it accordingly, and it's very important. Your static geometry you name like so. Your dynamic geometry that's gonna be rotating, you name like so. And this is how Rockstar does it. Don't ask me if it's what I've created or came to myself. It's just you won't have got this working any other way, because you would have to declare your model's name by prop anim tutorial, and if you had like few geometries here under a few hierarchies, proper naming is the only way for it to work. So I hope I explained that correctly or understandable. So it's the same with light source. This geometry is going to be rotating, so we're gonna, unlike this geometry that's inside our root bone, this geometry has to be inside our rotation bone. By the way, your model has to have include bones checked here. So now let's one more time deal with our hierarchy. I'm going to do that in schematic view, if it's going to be a little more understandable for someone. So this is our model. Inside model we have our root bone. Inside root bone we have our rotation bone, our collision that we're going to add geometry a bit later. We also have a static geometry, and within our rotation bone we have a rotating light source and rotating geometry, and the proper naming is included. So now let's do the tricky part. The hierarchy was a tricky part already, but this is something else we have to think about as well. There's something more to it. Let's quickly create our collision, because we haven't done that yet. We will optimize it, not just copy the geometry, because it's not optimized. So let's make something simple. We can leave it as it is actually, but let's slightly change it to fit our needs. At least something like that. This would do fine. This would serve our goal. And now we're done with hierarchy, because we copy our collision's name and we drag and drop it into our call hierarchy, like so. The same as we did with rotation bone prop, basically, but now we add a geometry to collision. Let's add a material to it. GIMS material. Let's make it. We can divide it into glass and into hard terrain, but I don't care about that at the moment actually. So let's just make it all glass. Now let's add our create object collision mesh modifier, which is just making it a real collision. VBH 00.2. Map animal, cover, dynamic, vehicle, make weapon flags. If you want custom add-on model tutorial, I will explain all of those flags, but for now just copy those. And now we're done with our hierarchy for good. The last thing left is dealing with the light source and with rotating your bone, but this is going to be something I'm going to do at the end. But now let's set up our shaders and materials and work with our geometry just like for 1 minute for you guys to see what you're going to have to do if it's your custom add-on model. Let's fix our smoothing groups like so. Go to your edit property, clear all, auto smooth. The same here, clear all, auto smooth. We can set up vertex color as well, but I'm not going to do that for the purpose of this video. Now let's create our textures. This is something many people struggle actually. Let's create multi-sub object. Let's set it to 2 because I only need 2 textures here. This is gonna be gives material. Make sure to show shading material in viewport enabled. Have it enabled. Let's copy it and paste. Name it like whatever. Now this is gonna be ID2. So the thing is gonna be rotating, and the thing that's not gonna be rotating is gonna be ID1. Let's apply it. And now let's set up our textures. I have those 2 textures that I took from that model that I showed you in Codewalker. Now let's set it up quickly, really quickly. I'm going to show you how to work with unwrap. For the static part, it's going to be default shader. Let's choose our texture here. And let's embed our texture, and for the second texture I'm gonna have it as glass, and the parameter set is gonna be glass pvinf, and I'm gonna choose that with alpha channel because it's glass, and embed it as well. Now we have this going on because you see there are a lot of textures in one. How do we fix that? I'm gonna show that really quickly. We go to our unwrap UVW. It's really fucked for now, but we open our UV editor. We go to pick texture, bitmap. We go to our destination. We opened our texture. We go to scale with free format basically, like so. F2 to disable red thingy, red polygons. Make it like so, and it's not bad. It's a desired result for now. It's good. Now let's collapse it and do the same here. As for here, I just want it to be red, right? I remember where it was on our unwrap, so I'm just gonna take it and drag it here. It was somewhere here. Yep. Nice. Looking good. We collapse it, and now we have our texturing and shadering done. We also worked with geometry, as I told you really quick. I just wanted to show it to you guys. Now let's deal with our light source parameters. I'm gonna do a big tutorial on MLO soon. Let me know how soon you want. I will cover lights, geometry, vertex colors, everything. But for now, let's just create some simple things. Let's rotate our spotlight like so. Fall of exponent, let's make it like 6. Intensity, let's make it 8. Inner angle is I'm not going to explain it for now because it will take a lot of time here for something that we don't need at the moment. Just make sure to copy the settings. Those are the time flags, so it works 24/7. Just make sure to copy the settings if you want to create something similar to mine with your light source. I can explain it later a bit more if we dive into lighting, stuff like that. Just let me know, guys, let me know. And our color, let's make it red, right? Because we have it red here. So now it's gonna be rotating with that geometry, just one light source. We could have multiple here, like 4 light sources rotating at the same time, just as many as you can drop into the hierarchy. So now we're actually done. We're done with everything we need to work in our scene. There is 2 more things to cover here that are extremely tricky and important. Those things are pivot points and coordinates and boundary box. So what about coordinates? So it's extremely important to understand that your geometry has to be centered and 0, 0, 0 everywhere, like so. I didn't make it sooner, so I make it now. Before you export, it has to be 0, 0, 0. Your pivot point, like so. It's extremely important to understand the pivot point. You take every pivot point you have, your collision, and you can move your collision like so, but your pivot point has to be 0, 0, 0. The same with model, the same with root bone, the same with your light. No, light is not the same because you can move it whatever you want. It just has to be where you want it to be. Let's drag it out a little more actually. Your collision has to be 0, 0, 0. This thing has to be 0, 0, 0 collision geometry. Static geometry has to be 0, 0, 0, and which is the tricky part is of course rotation, because it's extremely important that your rotation bone, which is this, it has to be at the same spot where your animation pivot point is. So for now it's at the same spot, 0, 0, 0 here and 0, 0, 0 here. But if we made it like so, it would have been rotating from here. So let me show you from here. And it's not bad for my example, but for you, you might run into problems. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna unlink it so it doesn't move with the hierarchy. And I'm gonna change my pivot of this model into where I want it to start rotating. So right here, not to 0, 0, 0, but when I want the rotation to start. And with horizontal rotation, it's not that obvious, but with vertical rotation, for example, you have a trade mill, it's your mill can be like here, and your static geometry can be like here. So it's extremely crucial to move your pivot point accordingly. So I want it to start rotating horizontally from here. So I copy my Z coordinates, I go to my rotation bone, effect pivot. It has to be minus probably. Yep, like so. So I just copy it and paste it those two positions. So if I did not understand that, if I did not explain that too well, pivot point of everything you have in your scene has to be 0, 0, 0, x, y, z. Two pivot points that are rotation geometry and rotation bone, their pivot have to match. You see? So you have this trail here. And this is where we're gonna have our rotation from here, like so. So I hope I explained that nicely. The last thing we want is our boundary box. So boundary box is how your model renders in game. Let me show you that real quickly in CodeWalker. So this is what is called boundary box. Whenever you grab whatever model, you have this green box around it, and this is the edge of the model rendering basically. What you have to understand is that boundary box has to include all the model. It has to be bigger than the model, not smaller than the model. So we have to include all our model within one box. What I'm trying to say is when we export for our, you remember for the collision we applied mesh modifier to make it collision. Now we have to do the same, but for geometry it has its own modifier. So you convert it to editable mesh, you go to create object, models, game mesh, and it creates this box which is a boundary box. But what I'm trying to say is you create game mesh for each, boundary box for each, but this boundary box doesn't include static model, and this boundary box doesn't include this model. So when you export, it's gonna take either of those inside your ytyp file where you have your boundary box written when you generate it. So in order to solve that problem, let's create an actual box, custom box, to so it fully covers all of our model, like this. So we're just basically making a box because it's a boundary box, right? Very simple things. So it has to fully cover, not like this, not like this, not like this. It has to fully cover it, like so. And we rename it to your model name, so it will fill all the data correctly. So you take your model's name and you rename your box to this, your boundary box. Now you go to your tools, and I'm going to use GTA 5 map helper by Neo7, link in the description. It's what I use on an everyday basis. You just have to download that, guys. It's very comfortable and useful, and it's what you should have used as well. Now you click to ytype. We're creating our archetype here. Our name is going to be the same. Flags 512, those are archetype flags. Special attribute is for doors, we don't need that here. Texture dictionary are embedded, we don't care about those. Clip dictionary, we're gonna create it later. For now, let's just write its name here. Physics dictionary is the same, but call, if you remember that. And we're done. Add archetypes, export ytype XML wherever you want it to be, right here, where you would find it later on. And now let's just export our model. For the one last time, you can delete your box now. For the one last time, you can export. You can export it somewhere you will find. And for the last one time, we will check our hierarchy like so. Make sure when you export it matches with this. Now we click continue. It wouldn't take long. Nice, it's done. Now we go to OpenIV. We're gonna need this anyway for converting our ODR into YDR. So here we have our embedded textures. We import our ODR here. I just turned on my edit mode, like so. And then you import your ytype XML. It converts into ytype. And this is what we generated from our box. So let's open it. And here we have our, you see our prop anim tutorial. If we hadn't renamed our box, here it would have been box. And your model wouldn't have spawned in CodeWalker and in game. But now it has correct boundary box values, which are those, BB min max, because we created a box that fills all our model, and it has the correct naming because we renamed it. So I hope that's understandable. Now the last thing we need here is to create our YCD, because you see here we have our clip dictionary, and this is YCD. We worked with YCD in my anim kit tutorial where we had pet animations. Here we have prop animations, and we're going to need to create our YCD too. So let's create our custom YCD file. I forgot to tell you that I assume by now you know that you have to create a folder inside your mods folder of DLC packs, like so. Create a proper DLC path, like so. DLC RPF, x64, levels, GTA 5, and click create RPF archive, like so. And you have to have your custom path for it to work in CodeWalker. I assume you know that by now. In order to create our YCD file, we're gonna navigate to the coordinator side. Thanks to him, or huge thanks to him, because when I started that a long time ago, I used this as a reference, as a template and stuff like that, and you're gonna have to use that as well. Link in the description. Thanks to coordinator. And now navigate to our setup meta files. Here you have your horizontal or vertical rotation. You guys have to understand that this is what's called horizontal rotation. So, for example, your clock, right? And this is a vertical rotation. So this could be like a mill, you know, like so. I'm very bad at drawing, you know, but it's just for you guys to understand and distinguish those two things. So our case, it's horizontal rotation. I click here and we have our template or on paste bin. We copy all of that like so, copy, Control C. Now you navigate to whatever path, you right click, new text document. We name it the same, we named it here in our clip dictionary, prop anim tutorial. Prop anim tutorial. Now it's ycd.xml. You open it with Notepad++ or with whatever. Control V. You can delete all the comments if you want. It doesn't matter. You can leave them be or just read them if you want. It doesn't matter. What you have to do here is it's really important. You copy your YDR's name. Control F. It's like changing one for another. So you see here it says object name. It has it here 4 times. Find object name, change it to prop anim tutorial, like so. Change it everywhere, change all. And they changed that in 4 places. Here, 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 and here. Now, the second part that is really important is changing our position. You remember I was telling you that pivot point is crucial, that we have to think about our pivot point of our rotating bone and our geometry that's rotating. We're gonna have to change that now. We copy the coordinates of our of the bone that is a rotation bone, not root bone, because root bone is 0, 0, 0. It's 0, 0, 0 here and in max. It doesn't move, it doesn't matter. But for our rotation bone, we copy the coordinates like so. Any coordinate may be different, not just that is z. And here, static vector 3, not the first one. This is root bone. For the second one, for me it's 0 for the x, 0 for the y, and what I copied from max is what z. Okay, we're done with that. It was really important. Now, as for the settings, this is the frame count, the sequence frame limit. Those things kind of control the smoothness, not the speed, but the smoothness. So if your animation kind of interrupts and starts over, this is the parameters you should look at. But default works fine, like so. And the parameters of the speed is end time and duration, and it has to be the same as end time, as it says here. So if it's higher value, it will go slower. So 1 is going to be rotating super fast. So let's make it like 5, like so. It can be up to 20 or 30 or something like that. So 1 is super fast, 5 is medium, 10 is kind of slow. So let's make it 5. We save it, Control S, close it. Now we're going to have to work with CodeWalker RPF Explorer, which is a better version of OpenIV basically. From DexEffects, you can download the latest version of CodeWalker and RPF Explorer here from releases from CodeWalker Discord. Huge credits to DexEffects for making it possible. Then you navigate to like whatever path you want, really. Like, for example, I'll go to my mods folder and I'll just turn in my edit mode. And here I will copy my path. After turning in edit mode, you right click, import XML, you paste your path, and here you have your ycd.xml. You open it, it converts it into ycd, like so. So it's now a done GTA ready file. But you have to open it one last time, go to XML, and here if it's blank for you, empty, this means that you have a mistake in the code. So let's say you didn't, you made a mistake like here or somewhere here, did not change that correctly, did not replace it correctly. So if it's empty, your YCD is fucked. You have to redo it from the beginning. So always check for that. Now let's stream it on our server, create a YMap, span it on CodeWalker. We're gonna change our flags as well for it to work and stream it to a server and make sure that it all works. I fired up my CodeWalker. This is where we've spawned by default. I click T on my keyboard, Control N. Let's create a new YMap where we spawn our model. New YMap file, YMap new entity. In case you need a CodeWalker tutorial, you let me know as well. You copy your YDR's name, you paste it into archetype, and here we have our model with right boundary box created. We don't see our red thing yet. We will fix that later. I will show you. Oh, it's rotating now. If it's not rotating for you now, it's fine. It will in game anyway. Now let's place it somewhere we want, somewhere we know, somewhere we'll find, like here. Something like that. And for the flags, it's not static entity. It's important here to have it not as static entity, but flags 2021. And here as well. Now let's stream it to our server. So I'm gonna go to my resources in my FiveM server. There is a tutorial on how to create a FiveM server on my YouTube channel. It's like the previous video. You create a new folder. Let's call it a new tutorial. Here let us take just a simple fix manifest with the default info in here. Let's create our streaming folder, and here we drag and drop our YDR, our ytype, and let's save our YMap here. Let's rename it to a new tutorial YMap. But not everyone knows that under manifest it still has map 1, so rename it to anim tutorial, your renewed YMap name, save manifest, save it there. Let's close it and actually go to our FiveM server and make sure it works. The last thing we're gonna have to do is enable it here. So we ensure our anim tutorial resource folder in our server.cfg, like so, and let's go to our server and make sure it works. Don't forget to stream your YCD as well. If it crashes in game or you don't see your model in game, it means you did not stream your YCD or your YCD is extremely fucked. So be careful with your YCD. So here we have our custom animation prop. Yep, we see the light. It's rotating. We can see that it's quite slow because it's a speed that we set up earlier. We can change that if we wanted to. Yeah, it looks alright. If you wanted, in case you wanted that glass to not be transparent or look like so, let's say you wanted it to glow in the night. You want your red glass to be emissive. You can change that by simply changing the shader here to glass emissive, and that's it. So now the second part of the video, it's we're gonna create a surface animation, UV animation, plane animation. If you want, you have to understand that we're not talking about car livery animation or gun animation or bed component animation. I can cover that if you want in another video, but for now I'm gonna cover like vanilla GTA surface animation, scrolling texture, if you wish, that the Rockstar uses on a plane. So let's it's quick and easy. Let's dive into that. Let's create a box, a little box. On top of it, let's create make it a little poly. On top of it, let's just it's another max version, not how it works. I mean the hotkeys, it's alright. Let's just make something of a billboard, maybe. Not exactly billboard, but it's gonna be something. We will see later what I'm planning. So let's set this to ID 2 and this to ID 1. Now that we separated our material IDs, let's actually create our material the same way I did that the last time. Two materials. The first one is going to be animation material, and second one will be static. Like so. Let's apply it, and now navigate to our textures. So the static texture is gonna be something like metal in my case. In your case, it can be whatever, like concrete or something. I don't care, we're making a billboard, right? I don't like how it looks. That's better. And our animation, I just had no idea what to pick, so I picked something like completely random. Don't blame me for that. It's gonna be Rick and Morty wallpaper thing. Voila. And we're gonna try to make this animated. Looks cool, right? Why did I divide it into separate materials? Because I wanted to show you how to make one part of the model static and the other part of the model make animated. So before we make it an actual before we make an YCD and animation for that, let's make it a model first. Let's embed our textures, or did I embed them already? No, let's embed our textures. For the purpose of this video, I always embed them. Now let's make it a custom model, center our pivot, 0, 0, 0 our coordinates, and the process is the same for adding model. Add-on model, you create model, let's name it like plain anim, pretty simple, right? And for plain animation, surface animation, scrolling texture, call it whatever, we do not need to work with bones. So it's good, that's why it's that simple and fast. Go to ytype, it's the same as previous time. Plain anim, I won't do a collision here, but it's the same. You just drag and drop composite into your model and announce it here. For the clip dictionary, I'm gonna call it plain anim. For the flags, it's gonna be 1024. Add archetypes, export XML, somewhere you'll find. Save your scene in case it'll crash or something. Everything's possible. Now you just export it. You see it's simpler, a lot simpler than rotation animations, but there is a simple trick left. I'm going to show you after it's exported. We see it's done exporting our ytype in ODR. Here is how it looks. Looks good. We have our ytype, which is we've looked at this previously. Now let's create our YCD XML almost the same way. Plain anim ycd.xml. Now let's open it with whatever you want, and we go to the same Decriminator website. Again, huge props to him. Go to simple scrolling texture animation, and here we have our template as well. We copy that, we paste that here, Control V, and here it's the same. We look for YDR name UV0. It's gonna be here in 3 places, like you just change it like so. Be very careful, do not delete things that are needed here, like so. Now the tricky part is the hash. You're not gonna believe me what we're about to do. So we're gonna, to generate a hash, we're gonna start our code walker, go to Jank again. We paste our plain anim here. Be careful, if you make it capital, it changes as well. So be really careful with that. Copy everything after OX. Now you open your calculator. Yes. Then you're gonna have standard by default. Then you go to programmer, go to hex, Control V, dec +1 equals hex. You copy that value here and paste that here without space here. I'm gonna explain what I did in a second and why I added 1 to that. And the last thing we need here is our end and start time. It's super fast, like 3 and 3 it's gonna be super fast. So let's make it like 10. Save it. Now it's the same procedure. We import our YCD XML. We make sure it's not empty inside. It's not working good. So now I'm going to explain what I did. Why did I add 1 here and how does it actually work? It's very simple and quickly, guys, for you. So why did I add 1 to my hash after I generated it with Schengen? So if you want your first material on your model to be animated, if you want this to be scrolling, your first material ID, that's why I divided it by separate material IDs, you add 1. If you want your second animation material ID to be animated, you add 2, then the first wouldn't be animated. So I hope that's clear. I added 1 because it's my ID that's gonna be animated in the game. And you also have to understand the difference, because you see here I just had this, and the other difference is 3 became 4. So if you only work with animation, if your animated ID is always going to be 1, you won't have to do this calculator thing. You basically just change your number to previous +1, so it was 3 what became 4, and that's it. So I hope you understand how it works now. Let's spawn it in CodeWalker and go into our server to check our cute little portal billboard thing. So let's spawn out our model the same way I did with horizontal rotation. It's ytyp new entity. We paste that here. We see our quite big billboard. And with Flux it's the same. Do not forget, don't make it static entity. It has to be 2021 to work properly in the game. Calculate extents, calculate all of the flags. Let's stream it to the same where I had my horizontal rotation. I'm not going to change YMap's name. Be careful so you don't have few YMaps with map1 name on your server, or it wouldn't work. Now let's head to our server and see if, how does it actually look, what is the speed and stuff like that. So this is how it looks in game. Not that bad. If you want to change in which direction it's moving, you have, just change it in unwrap. We did not unwrap that, so it doesn't look that good. The speed is like so-so. You can make it better, slower, or faster, whatever you want. If you want like an actual billboard or a monitor where two pictures switch between each other, just copy Rockstar settings. Those were just the settings out from my head, you see. But if you want something like extremely good, like an actual billboard or a monitor, just take Rockstar YCD and copy the frame sequence, end time, duration, and stuff like that. So yes, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you liked it. Please let me know which video you want to see next. And join my Discord server for further questions. If you have further help, I have the English section here. I'm gonna making more English videos. Let me know which videos exactly, and also please share what you accomplished, your YCDs, your animations. It's really nice to see. Always nice to see people modding and modding prosper. It's always nice to see. Check out our 5M store, our latest pet maybe. This is my favorite, Wall Rider guy. He looks sexy. So yes, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in next video, probably in May, like later this May or in June. I'm gonna start streaming soon. I think that was a little announcement for those guys who's still watching this. And alright, Thank you for watching and take care, guys.